Welcome back to the channel where we uncover the untold stories behind reality TV's most shocking moments. Love knows no boundaries, but sometimes boundaries refuse to accept love. This is the story of Jenny Slatin and Sumit Singh, two people who dared to challenge age, culture, and tradition in the name of love. Their journey began with hope, laughter, and dreams of a future together. But behind the smiles, a storm was slowly forming. A storm made of family pressure, cultural expectations, and the painful reality of fighting for love in a world that would not accept it. Jenny Slatin and Sumit Singh were trapped in family conflict for years. Sumit's parents never fully accepted Jenny. They wanted Sumit to marry a young Indian woman, start a proper family, have children, and continue the bloodline. Hearing this again and again slowly broke Jenny emotionally. Jenny wanted an independent life. Sumit wanted to protect his family traditions. Jenny said, "I don't want to live under anyone's control." Sumit replied, "This is our culture. We must take care of our parents." Because of this constant conflict and endless family drama, they eventually decided to separate. In the end, their 4-year relationship ended under heavy family pressure. On October 18th, their divorce was finalized in court. After the divorce, Sumit chose to move forward with his parents' wishes and married an Indian woman. Jenny was left emotionally devastated. She left India and returned to America for good. This is not just a love story. It is a story of sacrifice, heartbreak, and the painful truth that sometimes love alone is not enough. Jenny Slatin never imagined her life would take such a dramatic turn. Living in California, she had already experienced many ups and downs. She was divorced with grown children and longed for companionship, someone who would love her for who she was, not for what society expected. On the other side of the world, in India, Sumit Singh was a young man in his early 30s. He was curious, adventurous, and open to connecting with people beyond his culture. When Jenny and Sumit first met online, it started as a simple friendship. Late-night conversations turned into laughter, and laughter slowly turned into love. Jenny was drawn to Sumit's warmth. He listened, he cared, and he made her feel alive again. For Sumit, Jenny was more than a partner. She was someone who truly understood him. The age difference raised many eyebrows, but for them, love had no age. When Jenny decided to travel to India to meet Sumit, it was a huge leap of faith. She left her familiar life behind to step into a culture that was vibrant but challenging. The busy streets, the spices in the air, the chaos of daily life, it was overwhelming. But Jenny had only one focus, being with Sumit. Their first meeting felt magical. Jenny later described it as meeting someone she felt she already knew. When Sumit held her hand, the world around them disappeared. They laughed, explored, and dreamed of a future together. But from the very beginning, Sumit knew his parents would never approve. In Indian culture, marriage is not just about two people. It is about families, generations, and tradition. Jenny was older, foreign, and unable to give them grandchildren. For Sumit's parents, this was unacceptable. Still, Jenny and Sumit pushed forward. They believed love could overcome everything. They moved in together and tried to build a life despite gossip, judgment, and disapproving stares. Jenny often said, "I don't care what people think. I care about us." But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. Their love was strong, but the weight of tradition was stronger. As time passed, the battle between love and culture tested them in ways they never expected. Their relationship was never just about two people. It was about two worlds colliding. Jenny came from a culture that valued independence and personal choice. For her, love should be simple, two people choosing each other. But in India, love involved families, duty, and generations. Sumit's parents believed marriage was a responsibility to continue the family line. They wanted a daughter-in-law who was young, Indian, and able to have children. Jenny represented the opposite of everything they dreamed of. When Jenny first met Sumit's parents, the tension was obvious. His mother's silence spoke louder than words. His father's questions were sharp and painful. Why choose someone so much older? What future could they have? Jenny tried to stay respectful, but the rejection hurt deeply. Sumit was torn. He loved Jenny, but he also loved his parents. In his culture, taking care of parents is not a choice, it is a duty. Jenny told him one night, her voice shaking, "I don't want to live under anyone's control. I came here for love, not to be judged every day." Sumit replied softly, exhausted, "This is our culture. I can't abandon my parents." The conflict wasn't just about age or nationality. It was about identity. Jenny wanted freedom and respect. Sumit wanted peace and family approval. Their home became filled with silent tears, whispered arguments, and constant compromise. Neighbors talked. Relatives judged. The pressure grew heavier each day. Jenny felt like an outsider everywhere she went. Sumit felt like a traitor no matter which side he chose. They held on, believing things would change. Jenny hoped acceptance would come with time. Sumit hoped he could balance both worlds. But deep down, they both knew the hardest part was still ahead. Jenny always believed love could overcome any barrier. But as time passed in India, she realized acceptance could not be forced. She tried to adapt, learning Indian cooking, practicing Hindi phrases, and respecting traditions, but it was never enough. She even began dressing in traditional clothes to show respect. Jenny wanted Sumit's family to see her not as a foreigner, but as a woman who truly loved their son. Yet no matter how hard she tried, the whispers never stopped. Relatives looked at her with suspicion. Neighbors gossiped. And Sumit's parents remained distant and cold. Sumit's mother was especially harsh. She constantly reminded Jenny of her age, her inability to have children, and her foreign background. One evening, she said bluntly, "You cannot give us what we need." Holding back tears, Jenny replied softly, "I can give him love. Isn't that enough?" But in that house, love was never enough. Jenny's struggle was not only outside the home, but inside her heart as well. She began questioning herself. Was she selfish for wanting Sumit to choose her over his family? Was she wrong to believe that love could overcome centuries of tradition? At night, she cried quietly, afraid that her presence was only causing Sumit pain. Still, Jenny refused to give up. She attended family gatherings, even when she felt unwanted. She smiled through discomfort, hoping that one day her sincerity would be seen. She believed patience would eventually soften their hearts. But the pressure only grew heavier. Sumit was torn between defending Jenny and respecting his parents. Arguments filled their home. Jenny would ask, "Why can't they just accept me?" Exhausted, Sumit would reply, "I'm trying, Jenny. But this is bigger than us." The harder Jenny tried, the more resistance she faced. Every effort seemed to highlight how different she was. She wanted independence, but found herself trapped, constantly trying to prove her worth to people who had already judged her. Her struggle became a symbol of love versus tradition, freedom versus conformity. Jenny's heart grew heavier, yet she kept telling herself, "I didn't come this far to give up." But deep down, she knew the cracks were growing. Acceptance felt farther away each day, and their once unbreakable love was being tested by forces beyond their control. For Sumit, life became an emotional battlefield. On one side was Jenny, the woman he loved deeply. On the other were his parents, who had raised him and expected him to honor tradition. Every day, he felt pulled apart. He grew up believing family always came first. In his culture, parents are lifelong responsibilities, and defying them is seen as betrayal. Yet when he looked at Jenny, he saw a future filled with love and freedom. He wanted both worlds, but knew he could not have them together. Jenny reminded him of her sacrifices. "I left my country, my family, my comfort. All for you," she said. Sumit knew she was right, but his mother's words echoed in his mind. "She cannot give us grandchildren. She cannot carry our legacy." Those words left him frozen between love and duty. At night, Sumit lay awake imagining two futures. One with Jenny, peaceful and free. The other without her, where his parents smiled again. Both visions broke his heart. Arguments became frequent. Jenny wanted clarity. Sumit struggled to give it. One night she asked through tears, "Why can't you choose me?" He whispered, "Because choosing you means losing them, and choosing them means losing you." Friends told him to follow his heart. Relatives warned him of shame. His parents demanded obedience. Jenny asked for love, Every choice felt like betrayal. The tension inside Sumit's family home grew unbearable. Jenny was met with cold stares and whispered judgments. To his parents, her presence challenged everything they believed in. His mother reminded him daily of his duty to continue the family line. His father's silent disapproval spoke louder than words. Jenny tried everything: kindness, cooking, respect, traditions. Nothing worked. The rejection was not about her behavior, but who she was: older, foreign, and unable to have children. The pressure slowly poisoned their relationship. Jenny cried, asking why they hated her. Sumit replied, "It's not about love. It's about tradition." His parents pushed harder. They demanded he marry a young Indian woman. They threatened to disown him. Sumit tried to protect Jenny, but the pressure never stopped. Jenny felt herself breaking. She had left everything behind for Sumit, yet felt like an intruder in the life she sacrificed for. The rejection crushed her spirit. Despite her strength, Jenny reached her limit. Every day felt like a test she could never pass. Her sacrifices felt invisible. Her confidence faded. At home, arguments worsened. Jenny begged Sumit to stand by her. His hesitation hurt deeply. "I didn't come here to live under control," she cried. "I came for love, not to be treated like a mistake." Her breaking point came at a family gathering. She overheard relatives mocking her age and questioning why Sumit stayed with her. One person said, "Why are you wasting your life with her?" Jenny walked away and broke down in tears. That night, she told Sumit the truth. "I can't do this anymore. I love you, but I'm losing myself." Sumit stood silently, overwhelmed by guilt and pressure. Jenny realized this wasn't just about family, it was about survival. She had lost her peace, dignity, and sense of belonging. Love alone was not enough. And as the cracks widened, the path toward separation became unavoidable. The love that once felt unstoppable had reached its breaking point. The days that followed were heavy with silence. Jenny and Sumit moved through their home like strangers, weighed down by words left unsaid. Every conversation felt fragile, as if one wrong sentence could shatter what little remained. The love was still there, but it was exhausted, worn down by years of pressure and pain. Jenny began to withdraw emotionally. She stopped trying to impress Sumit's family. She no longer dressed up for gatherings or for smiles that hid her heartbreak. Inside, she felt empty. The woman who had crossed oceans for love was now questioning why she stayed. Sumit noticed the change. He saw the sadness in her eyes, the quiet resignation in her voice. It terrified him. He realized that in trying to hold on to everyone, he was losing the one person who had given up everything for him. But even with that realization, he remained stuck. Fear ruled his decisions, fear of losing his parents, fear of dishonoring his family, fear of regret. His parents sensed the shift and intensified their pressure. They reminded him daily that time was running out. They spoke of reputation, society, and the future. They warned him that staying with Jenny would leave him alone, without family support. Their words were not loud, but they were relentless. Jenny felt the walls closing in. She began to imagine a life without Sumit. The thought broke her heart, but it also brought a strange sense of relief. For the first time in years, she imagined waking up without judgment, without needing to prove her worth. One evening, Jenny told Sumit she was thinking about going back to America for a while. "I need space to breathe," she said quietly. Sumit panicked. He begged her not to go, promising once again that things would change. Jenny listened, but this time the promises felt empty. She had heard them before, too many times. Days turned into weeks. The tension became unbearable. Small arguments turned into emotional breakdowns. Both were drained. Love was no longer enough to carry the weight they were asking it to bear. Finally, the conversation they had been avoiding came to the surface. They sat together in silence before Jenny spoke. "We've tried everything," she said. "Love, patience, sacrifice. But nothing is changing." Her voice did not shake this time. It was calm, almost numb. Sumit looked at her, tears filling his eyes. He knew she was right. For years, he had hoped time would fix everything. But time had only deepened the wounds. He realized that asking Jenny to stay meant asking her to suffer, endlessly. And asking his parents to accept her meant defying everything they believed in. There was no victory in this situation, only loss. The decision to separate was not dramatic. There were no shouting matches, no slammed doors, just two people sitting with the truth they could no longer escape. Love had brought them together, but reality was tearing them apart. When Jenny finally packed her bags, it felt surreal. The home they had shared now felt hollow. Every object carried memories, laughter, hope, pain. Sumit helped her pack in silence. Each folded item felt like a goodbye. At the airport, neither knew what to say. Words felt useless. Sumit held Jenny's hands tightly, as if letting go would erase everything they had been through. Jenny looked at him one last time and said, "I don't regret loving you, but I can't lose myself anymore." Sumit nodded, unable to speak. As she walked away, he felt the weight of his choice settle heavily on his chest. He had lost the woman who chose him above everything else. Jenny returned to America broken but determined. Back in familiar surroundings, the pain hit her fully. Nights were long. Memories haunted her. She questioned herself again and again, wondering if she could have done more. But deep down, she knew she had given everything she had. Healing was slow. Some days were harder than others. But with time, Jenny began to rediscover herself. She found strength in independence, comfort in familiar faces, and peace in being free from judgment. Though the scars remained, so did her resilience. Sumit stayed behind, surrounded by family yet feeling alone. His parents were relieved. They believed the problem had been solved. Soon after, they began arranging his future according to tradition. A younger Indian woman entered his life, chosen for him, accepted by his family. Eventually, Sumit agreed to move forward. He told himself this was the right path, the responsible choice. He married again, fulfilling his parents' wishes. The family smiled, proud that tradition had been preserved. But behind closed doors, Sumit often thought of Jenny. He remembered her sacrifices, her love, and the life they dreamed of. He wondered what could have been if the world had been kinder. When news of Sumit's new marriage reached Jenny, it reopened old wounds. The pain returned, sharp and unexpected. She felt replaced, erased, as if their love had been easily forgotten. For a moment, it broke her all over again. But slowly, Jenny accepted the truth. Their love had been real, even if it did not last. It had changed her, taught her strength, and reminded her of her worth. She chose not to let bitterness define her story. This was not a story with villains or heroes. It was a story of two people trapped between love and tradition. A story where no one truly won. Jenny and Sumit's journey reminds us that love, no matter how powerful, cannot always overcome cultural walls, family expectations, and deeply rooted beliefs. Sometimes love is not defeated, it is simply outmatched. And sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is walk away. Not because they stopped loving, but because they refuse to lose themselves. Their story is not just about heartbreak. It is about reality, about choices, and about the painful truth that love alone is not always enough. The months after the separation felt strange and quiet for both of them. Life moved forward, but the memories refused to fade. For Jenny, returning to America did not mean returning to happiness overnight. She had escaped the pressure, but the emotional weight followed her home. She settled back into a small routine. Morning coffee, quiet walks, phone calls with her children. On the surface, everything looked normal. But inside, she was still grieving. Not just the loss of Sumit, but the loss of the future she believed in so deeply. She had imagined growing old together, building a life across cultures. Letting go of that dream hurt more than she expected. There were moments when she blamed herself. She wondered if loving someone younger had been a mistake, if leaving her comfort zone had been foolish. But other moments brought clarity. She reminded herself that loving deeply was never wrong. The pain came not from love, but from rejection. Jenny slowly began to speak about her experience. To friends, to family, to herself. Each conversation helped her heal a little more. She realized how much she had given, and how little she had received in return. For the first time in years, she began to put herself first. Meanwhile, Sumit's life followed a very different path. His family believed everything was finally back on track. Their worries were gone. Society's expectations had been met. From the outside, his life looked stable and correct. But inside, Sumit felt hollow. He had done what was expected of him, yet peace did not come easily. The house was full, but his heart felt quiet and distant. He tried to focus on his responsibilities, telling himself that this was adulthood, that sacrifice was part of life. Sometimes, late at night, memories returned without warning. Jenny's laughter, her patience, the way she fought so hard to belong. He wondered how someone who loved him so completely could be treated as an outsider for so long. Sumit never spoke